Everybody, and welcome to our early comics review video. I'm Andy.
I'm Matt.
We're here with Infinity Flux Comics out of Chattanooga, Tennessee. And like I said on our last video, happy Boxing Day,
That's right.
everyone. If you partake in boxing things, boxing your friends, your neighbors.
Or boxing up things to sell, and all
Yeah,
kinds of
yeah.
connotations.
So, this is our big show where we're going over roughly about 20 different books that are coming out this week. So, we're a little delayed. We're doing this on a Tuesday instead of a Monday because, of course, the holiday. But it looks like the companies did not hold back because we've got some big stuff coming out. Can't wait to get into. So, before we begin, just remind you, head over to infinityflux.net where you can order any of these books you see right here while supplies last. And follow us on YouTube. Give us a like. That would be a wonderful present if you wanted to give us
Yeah.
a belated Christmas gift. Would take a good like and a subscribe. So let's get into this week because Matt's starting off with a very big one.
Yeah, something super cool. So this is Duke #1. We've been waiting for this for a long time. Super
Yeah.
excited about it. It's written by Joshua Williamson. The art is by Tom Riley. The colors by Jordi Belair. Like everything about this is great. And so this is the GI Joe book that is part of the Energon universe connected to Transformers. So in this, the GI Joe team hasn't really been formed yet. And it really does focus mostly on Duke. We see in the early phases that he was at one point, like one of the best soldiers that the U.S. military had to offer, and we saw that in some of the preview pages from a while back too. But then something happened to him. He saw something that changed his outlook on everything, made him start questioning everything, all the orders he was getting. He was just like, he was just it changed his whole life basically. And now General Hawk has come to recruit him to be part of this new, Avengers initiative. You think you're the only soldier out there? No, but he's not so sure. Duke is not so sure because of that thing that he saw. And I'm not going to tell you what it is, but if you've read another Energon Universe book, you probably know what that is. And instead, he goes out on a mission to find all of the answers to all the questions that he has because he saw something and he wants to know what it is, why it
He
is,
definitely
that kind
doesn't
of thing.
like that Hawk's trying to recruit him for something, but he knows he's not giving him the truth.
Yeah.
And that really, he's like, I've given my life to this, to be a
Yeah.
soldier. He's even like chosen not to be promoted because he knows his place is on the ground.
Right.
And he's done all this, and then they won't tell him the truth about what happened. I think
Yeah.
that's really interesting.
Yeah, so once he sets out on this mission to, figure out the truth, it almost becomes kind of like a Jason Bourne style.
Yeah.
Like even if this weren't Duke and it weren't connected to GI Joe, I would still read it, right? Because he's like sneaking into buildings and trying to get information, but then having to fight off some guys and then get a quick escape and that kind of thing. And then the ending, I won't tell you what it is, but it's very cool. It does have some exciting connotations for what's to come eventually with GI Joe, that kind of thing. This is something like not necessarily. I think this is just a mini series
Yeah.
that is going to lead into GI Joe at some point. But I could see this version of Duke and GI Joe, what we know we're getting with Cobra and Cobra Commander. I can see this lasting for years
Yeah.
as we meet new characters and they go on new missions and that whole world just builds. And of course there is the connection to Transformers too, since they're in the same universe. I could see this lasting for a really long time. Like the first feeling I got was like, this could be like the next Walking Dead.
Yeah.
How that was a huge book and it lasted for like a decade, 140 something issues. Obviously, I would want this to go longer than that, but I could see this being that level because
Right.
it's so interesting.
Yeah, and they're kind of drip feeding you a lot,
Yeah.
but in the good way of like, hey, let's show you why you care about this character
Yeah.
before we just throw every character at you later on that we know eventually we're going to get some of the mainstay
Oh, for sure.
characters,
Yeah.
but this is a cool way to introduce you new readers and old fans to this kind of new version of them.
Yeah. Duke has always kind of been like, if you watch the cartoon in the 80s, like Duke has always been just like the vanilla ice
Right.
cream of GI Joe characters. But in this one, he like gets some sprinkles, maybe a little
Yeah.
bit of whipped cream. Like they just give him more depth and more to do, and because it focuses on him and his mission to learn all this stuff, like it makes him a much more interesting and more of a deep character than he
Yeah.
has been before. Like it, I loved it.
Yeah.
I thought this was fantastic. I wanted more the minute it was done. I want to see him. You know, we're going to get Cobra Commander #1 next month. I want to see them a bit eventually butt
Yeah.
heads. I want to see how Transformers figures in all of it. Like everything about this, I am on board for.
Yep. Yeah, very cool. And, I just, like we said before, I love they didn't dump 1,000 characters in this
Yeah,
issue. This is a Duke book. This isn't a G.I. Joe book. This is about Duke.
right.
And I feel like we'll learn over this miniseries why he's the leader
Yeah,
that the team
yeah,
needs.
yeah. We will get to GI Joe and all that stuff eventually, but this is the start of the start, right?
Yes.
So, and that's super. You're getting in on the ground floor. So, if you've always been curious about GI Joe, or if you don't really know much about him, but you want to, like, absolutely start right here. This is a great starting point for all that stuff. We're gonna really get to learn about Duke. He's gonna get fleshed out, and it's gonna be super fun, I think. So, we got our A cover right there, and then we've got some cool variants. Oh no, Duke took out my stamp. Oh shoot, I nearly took out yours too. Golly. That's how excited we are, right? We're just like knocking stuff over. But there is our David Aja cover. Very cool. And then we have a 1 in 10 boss variant.
This is very boss.
Yeah, trying to get that in focus there. That's very Bruno Redondo Nightwing,
Yeah.
action scene. And then we have this 1 in 25 Upting variant that we're selling for $25. Oh, and that 1 in 10, that was $8.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, next up, I've got a pretty big one this week. This is the 2023 Marvel Timeless issue by Colin Kelly and Jackson Lansing. And if you're not familiar with the Marvel Timeless, they've been doing it quite a few years now. I can't
Started in
remember.
2021, so this is
Okay,
only the third one they've done.
but it's kind of cemented itself as
Yes.
this is uh, a mix of it's a narrative but also kind of a teaser book
Mhm.
that I really like this format. They just did it recently with the Star Wars Revelations issue, and now with this, where you've got a story, and I feel like we will visit some of the elements of the story in the future. But because of however the story is told, there are moments where we see uh, little snippets, little panels of things to come without any
Yeah, no
explanation.
explanation whatsoever. Like you'll have to just figure it out for yourself. And some of them are just like, what? What?
Yeah,
What
yeah,
is
you
that gonna
don't
be?
know. But it does. This one, does deal with like the previous one was about Kang, so we saw some characters throughout time, and a lot of that stuff has come to pass in various Marvel books. And this, I'm guessing, will be no different. But we were talking about this before. I think this has the most little hints to things to
Yeah, there's
come.
like in the last two that have both involved Kang. Like there's been maybe like 2 pages.
Yeah, maybe a splash page
Yeah,
or something like that.
but in this one, there's like 4, maybe 5 pages full of
Yeah.
little tiny snippets of things. Like there's a lot
And
in
it's
this one.
wild.
Mhm.
So, the main story of this, it's not a spoiler to say that this is Luke Cage, and we have a character known as the Immortal Moon Knight. This is set in the future. I don't think it gives any time frame of when this
No.
takes place, but essentially, it seems like all of the heroes are dead, but these two. Um, and it definitely drops you in the middle of the story because we find out that Luke Cage at this point is made up of like a bunch of different heroes. So he's got the powers of Sentry, he's got the powers of Hulk, he's got Iron Fist. So he's kind of this like amalgamation of like a bunch of
Yeah.
very powerful things.
And we don't know how he got that either. That
No,
because it's not really important. That's not really important to
yeah,
the
that's the
story,
thing about this is like it's like you jumped into the middle of a
Yeah.
storyline, close to the end of the
Yeah.
storyline, and you're just kind of like figuring out as you go. And they do a good job at just enough. But in this future, it seems like Conchu is or the Moon Knight presence, the moon in
Yeah.
general, is kind of a deity almost.
Sort of lording over Earth and
Yeah,
everybody that's
kind
on
of
the
in this
planet.
constant night, and there's people who are kind of going there. It sounds like they're gonna get like taken to the moon, is what they're saying,
Yeah.
but there's a lot of mystery in what is actually going on. But Luke Cage, It's definitely like this is not good what's going on, and I'm gonna stop this once and for all. So we do get kind of the confrontation between this immortal Moon Knight and Luke Cage. But who is this immortal Moon Knight? I don't want to give that away, or what has brought this character to this point of this immortal Moon Knight character, and what is there more behind it than what meets the eye? So it's a very interesting story. We get some really awesome fight scenes in this
Yeah.
that go crazy places. I mean,
Uh-huh.
there's limbs being lost, there's a bunch of stuff. But because this does take place in the future, we do have Luke Cage thinking back. I think there's most of the cases with the hints of
Well,
things.
what it was he said that uh Khonshu was basically trying to absorb or um uh, squish together like all of space and time. So he gets like these visions, like these ripples of things to come. So
Yeah,
it's not like he's thinking of the things that happened before, but he's getting visions, I
yeah,
think, of like, because he says like, "Oh, I feel it again, another ripple," or something like that,
yeah.
and that's where your little preview images come in.
Yeah, so I don't want to give away a whole lot of the stuff that we see because it's a lot of fun to discover. But there is stuff, let's say, related to the X-Men, which we know there's a lot of big stuff coming up. There's some really interesting silhouettes of maybe a new X-Men team or whatever form they're going to be in
Yeah.
that definitely leaves a lot to the imagination of what that's going to look
But
like.
that is a big maybe because none of this, like, we're just guessing at all
Yeah.
this stuff, right? I mean, not, because with these books, nothing is confirmed. You just sort of have to figure out what it might mean and then
Yeah,
figure
it's
it out
definitely
eventually. But
like just the barest little taste
yeah,
of it that, I think even in previous ones, some of the stuff that we saw didn't come to
right.
pass.
We're still
There,
waiting.
there's a one for a previous one involving Mary Jane fighting Shuri, I think, that we have still not
And she was
seen.
in the Spider-Man
She's in the
costume.
Spider-Man
Yeah. So
costume. So probably about 75 to 80% of previous ones, that stuff does happen. And a lot of stuff in here, we know what it is. There's kind of some allusions to the gang war stuff going on in
yeah,
Spider-Man. There's some stuff involving the big vampire event that's coming next year that we
yeah.
already know exists. But there's a lot of very strange ones as well. I'll say you see some really interesting stuff with Doctor Strange, some stuff with the new Punisher
Mm-hmm.
that definitely raises some questions. And the one that we've been talking about is there's one involving Winter Soldier that I
It makes no sense.
it almost feels like a thing they were like maybe we'll make this up and maybe we'll get around to writing this story, but let's
Yeah.
make this as wild as possible. I don't know if it maybe is representing something and doesn't actually happen. I hope it does actually happen because what
I just want
is
to figure
that
out
even going to
what that
be?
even means. Yeah.
Um, and there is, I don't want to say like, I don't think there's any like first appearance of characters that we really know of. But
No.
there's some characters that appear that were unexpected. I'll say
Right.
that. Very unexpected. So just a lot of really fun stuff. If you're a big fan of just the Marvel universe as like, I want to know what's going on all around. I'm into this. That's what this book is for. This is like maybe you read a little Spider-Man, maybe you read a little Captain America. This is really fun, so you can kind of see what is this going
Yeah.
on. But also this main story, I feel like we haven't seen the end of it. I think there's
Yeah, that might come. It might come back around. Which the
yeah,
other? Well, that's not. I was gonna say the other timeless stories haven't, but that's not exactly true because the timeless story from last year introduced us to the Twilight Court,
yeah,
who are in the Avengers book right now. So yeah,
yeah.
this might come
It's
back
kind of one of those
around.
things too. You're like, I don't know where it would pop up again,
Yeah,
but it is there as kind of maybe it's setting the stage for something big. So very cool one here with Marvel Timeless. I think a lot of people were really going to enjoy this one. I feel like this one, narrative wise, is really interesting. It's not just there for the spice on top of the
yeah,
teases. I really like the main story in this too.
yeah. I think this may have been my favorite of the three that we've had so
Yeah,
far.
especially there's a page in the beginning that doesn't take place in the future. It takes place kind of in the now of the Marvel
Oh, right.
universe.
Yeah.
That I thought was very impactful
Mhm.
for what happens in the issue. So great story here, plus all those fun teases
Yeah.
in Marvel's 2023 timeless issue. So there is a spoiler variant. So if you are just 100% against spoilers, look away for just a second. But it's not necessarily that big of a spoiler.
It's
one
really
thing,
not
it's
actually.
out of 30 different little teases, it's one of them,
Yeah.
and we don't even really know what it means. But there is the spoiler variant. This is the Masafara variant that I'm very interested what this might mean coming up with one of my favorite Marvel
Yeah.
characters.
We won't say it out loud in case you have your eyes
Yeah,
closed, but again, not that big of a spoiler because
no.
nothing really with that
It
happened.
would be like it's a spoiler when we don't even know what it
Yeah, for what we
is.
don't know.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay, you can open your eyes now. Spoilers,
yeah,
goodbye.
yeah. You can pull the pillow off of your face. We also have this really nice Alex Ross timeless variant that's kind of just more of those
That's another the
the
connecting covers.
connecting
Yeah,
ones. Yeah,
we had one for Avengers and one for I don't remember the other.
yeah. And we also have this 1 in 25 Miguel Mercado variant that we're selling for $25 with that new Luke Cage. It's like kind of an ultimate Luke
Yeah,
Cage.
that big old glowing. I love that design for him.
This moment too where with his chains,
Yeah,
that's like, oh, that's
yeah.
cool.
I would like to see that version of Luke Cage again.
I would like to see a Marvel Legends version of that one.
Oh, I would buy that for sure.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to move on with Green Arrow number 7. And we've got other number 1s and 2s to talk about, but I want to talk about number 7 of Green Arrow because this does kind of sorta feel like a number 1 issue for Green Arrow because in this issue, Green Arrow is
Big greens.
he's now back on Earth proper or Earth, what do they call it? Earth Zero, Earth Prime. I forget what they call it now, but he's now back on his Earth in his own time. The first 6 issues have been him hopping around multiverses and hopping around different points in time, but he is back, right where he's supposed to be now. But he's surprised to find that the Justice League has disbanded. He's like, well, well, how is this even possible? And it's cool. He goes around to several different characters, several different members of the Justice League. He goes to talk to Batman and Wonder Woman and Superman and Green Lantern and several other characters to say, hey, what in the world? And they all sort of tell him that, hey, you know what? After this big thing, Nightwing and the Titans, they stepped up and they said that they can handle it.
Yeah.
So we're gonna let them. And he's like, all right, well, that's pretty cool. So there's not a lot of action in this issue because it's mostly him interacting with various members of the Justice League who he hasn't seen in a really long time. So that was really nice to see him paired up with those guys again. But then after all that, he meets up with Connor Hawk, his son, and now they have a mission to find Roy because Roy is missing. Because of what Roy and Black Canary were doing. I don't actually quite remember what happened, but I'll have to go back and read like the first 6 issues again. It happened in there somewhere. But Roy's missing, and Green Arrow's going to go find him basically. But that also might lead him to cross paths with Amanda Waller because he wants to know what is Waller up to because the heroes sort of told him that Waller's been acting weird too. She's back from Earth 3 where she was a couple years ago. So he wants to know what is she up to? Where's Roy? And are those two things related?
You remember what happened with Roy, where he went to an underwater base?
I remember
And
that.
yeah, that I think that's the last time we've seen him,
Okay.
where it did not look good for him.
Yeah, it's definitely in I want to say like number 5 or 6
Yeah,
of Green Arrow. I just don't remember, but it's there. But yeah, I mean that's really cool. And then so now this is going to sort of kick off of the next arc. Searching for Roy. He's like I said, going to cross paths with Amanda Waller, who is popping up everywhere in the DC books
yeah.
right now. She's playing a big role in Beast World, which I kind of makes me wonder is Green Arrow going to get wrapped up in that with what she's doing? Like it's just I don't know, but it's all awesome because Amanda Waller's great. Seeing Green Arrow go up against her would be really cool. So I just love this issue. I've been loving this series so far, and it's just cool to have Green Arrow back where he is. And uh, one thing I'll tell you too, it's not a spoiler because it's like the second page. He mentions that because Dinah and Roy and those guys didn't have me declared dead. My bank account's still intact, which means I'm as rich as I ever was,
Wow.
and I'm able to buy a new car and a brand new suit, like a brand new like superhero suit.
Yeah,
And I loved that because it's gone back and forth so many times over the years. Oh, Green Arrow's rich. Oh, but he lost his money. Oh,
yeah.
now he got it back. Oh, now he lost it again.
Him and Batman just gaining and
Yeah,
losing.
and I just liked it that they didn't really explain this is what I had to do to get my money back. And but they told us that he's rich again because that prevents me from having to wonder, is he rich or what's all going on with
Yeah.
his company? He just in one box it said, I'm as rich as I ever was. And that's all I need to know. Like, I don't really care about
Yeah.
anything else. Like, okay, thank you for clarifying that point for me, and now let's move on with
I
the
like the
story.
idea that they didn't declare him dead because they knew they
That's
were
right.
like,
Yeah.
we're not going to
Yeah.
stop looking for him.
Yeah.
We know he's not dead.
And again, not a spoiler. That was on the second page of the book. So, and it's just it's not even a main story point. It's just something that they established at the beginning. And I love stuff like that. It's like, okay, let's take care of a little
Yeah.
bit of housekeeping, and now let's set him on his next path. And it was great. So I love this issue. I love this series. If you have been wanting to get into Green Arrow, you really could probably start right here. You might be a little bit confused because they do reference a little bit with the previous 6 issues, but not a whole lot. So you can pick it up right here if you want to, and just enjoy a good story. So there's our A cover right there, and
Also, just announced that it's an ongoing. It
yeah,
went from a 6 issue to a 12 issue to an ongoing.
yeah, it
So,
went the poison ivy path,
yeah.
and I am so excited because like this, this next story could lead into all kinds of places, and to know that they don't have to cram it into 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 5 more
Yeah.
issues. That is awesome. So yeah, ongoing. So yeah, hop on board and get in on the semi ground floor of what's going to be a great
Yep.
book. Yep. So A cover right there, and then we have our Chris Samney variant. Which I love that one. And then we have it's a day late, but we have this really cool Silent Night variant with the nice homage there with Green Arrow and Santa Claus. And then I really like this 1 in 25 Sean Isaacs variant that we're selling for $40 with
Sean
block
Isaac's still
knitting.
having his hand on it, even though he didn't draw this issue.
Yeah, he did not draw this. He drew the cover.
Yeah.
He didn't draw the interiors, but the interiors still do look good. It's Carmine Gian Domenico and Trevor Hairsine that
Okay.
kind of,
Awesome.
but the whole book looks good too. So yeah,
Yeah.
still just excellent.
Well, next up, speaking of Amanda Waller, we've got Titans Beast World #3. So check out that cover there with Wolf Batman
Hmm.
facing off against Amanda Waller.
Bat Wolf, I
Yeah.
guess.
So in this one, I don't want to give away too much spoilers for it, but we are kind of in the middle of this story.
Mhm.
So there's not a huge, big kind of game-changing moments, but it's cool. One, they bring in Detective Chimp,
Yep,
which
that's
is just
awesome.
fantastic because Nightwing's doctor, his doctor friend or whatever,
Yeah,
immediately thinks it's somebody who got turned into an animal. He's like,
right.
"No, I've always
She
been."
throws like a flashlight at him or something. He's like, "You think I'm one of those beast
Yeah,
creatures?"
but Detective Chimp gets brought in for them to kind of do some studying of Batman now that he's this wolf creature that's
Yeah.
been caught. So that part's really cool. I love seeing him. We have Starfire, who's a Kandak fighting Black Adam, who is a lion. Now, I'll come back to that because also this week Titans came out, and that is that story.
Okay.
So that was pretty cool. And we learn a little bit about what are these beasts actually doing. So the initial thought was these are just rampaging monsters, but Detective Chimp, I think it's Detective Chimp that kind of figures it out. It looks
Yeah, he's the one.
says like it actually looks like they may have a goal or something that they're targeting, which I thought was really interesting and kind of broadens the story a little bit more.
Yeah, but we still don't know what that is
Yeah,
or who's giving it to him or why. Like, so there are
yeah.
still some questions.
But also, Amanda Waller plays a big part in this towards the end. That just kind of is building uh, her resume of like something big is coming
Yeah.
with her. She's got a target now that she's going after, a big target that is I don't know. I feel like we're seeing a bunch of little pieces of her plan, and at some point, it's all going to come together. We're
Yeah.
like, that's what she was planning this
Yeah.
whole time.
And that target that she's going after, I wonder how that might affect another book
Yeah,
that I won't say what, but like I'm very interested in how all this stuff is interconnected. Because like I said, you got Green Arrow going after Amanda Waller, but Amanda Waller is going after something that is also in another book as well.
yeah,
How does it all weave together? Like this is a great way to like tie all these books together without doing this big event and all these tie-ins
yeah,
and stuff. Like it's very, very well done.
yeah. No matter what path you're following with this story, you're getting a little bit of it. If
Yeah.
you're reading all of it, great.
Hmm.
But she's spread herself wide enough into
Yeah.
different books that you see like everyone gets a little taste of what her plan
Yeah.
is. So that's very cool. Great issue of Beast World. I can't wait to see. I really don't know where the story's going. That's
Yeah.
kind of the cool part too. Is like, what is this leading to? We know she's maybe going to be starting a new Suicide Squad, but we don't know really what the ramifications of the story is going to
Mhm.
be. So we've got a really cool lenticular variant
Yeah.
this time.
Another one of those good quality lenticular covers that
Yeah,
just look great. Yeah.
it's the Clayton Henry with Batman and his Batwolf form. Looks like he got a Batwolf suit tailored towards his
Yeah.
wolf form, which is very cool.
He's Batman. He probably had one ready just in
He's like, I
case, you know.
know one day I'm gonna get
If
turned
that
into
ever
a
happens,
wolf.
I'm gonna be ready.
We also have this Baren's variant as well with Raven.
Yeah, just continues to be awesome. I love this issue. Like it's been a great series. Like it's good job, DC. You know, the way they're all connected. Like it's been very, very
It's
good.
very
Yeah,
orchestrated in a
very
very good
entertaining.
way.
Yeah. All right, so next for me is Deadly Hands of Kung Fu Gang War #1. So this is the first issue of Shang-Chi's tie-in into the Gang War storyline. Written by Greg Pak, and the art is by Kaio Machado. So in this one, you know, the gang war is raging on throughout New York City. Shang-Chi is the head of the Five Weapons Society, who is one of the crime families,
Yeah,
even though he's trying to make them legit. But they are one of the factions in the city, right? But Shang-Chi is content to just let the gang war rage on over there as long as they don't like come into Chinatown. He's like, I'm just gonna let it happen. I just want to make sure my streets are safe. And he tells one of his people in his group, and look at the street. There's nothing going on down there. Everybody's happy and fine. So like I'm just gonna let it roll, you know? But it's not too long before two different factions actually encroach on his territory. So he and his squad are going to have to sort of jump into action and fight against them to protect the streets of Chinatown. But not everyone in the Five Weapons Society shares his vision of, you know, I don't really care what they're doing. I just want my territory to be cool, and that's it. Not everybody in his group agrees with him, and so that's going to make things a little bit more complicated for him. And that's all. That's where I'll leave it. But yeah, if you've just been reading the Gang War storyline, here is another tie into that. And if you're a Shang-Chi fan, you know he's got the 10 rings and all that. Spider-Man shows up for a couple pages. So yeah, just another good addition to that story. So there's our A cover right there, and I think this is actually the only. There are variants, but I think those have already been put in pull boxes,
yeah.
maybe. So that's the only one that we have to show today.
Shang-Chi's interesting right now. He's existing across miniseries.
Yeah.
Like he gets like a couple of different miniseries where he's bouncing around. He hasn't had an ongoing in a while.
Right.
But it's cool, like he's still a big player, especially now with his status.
Yeah.
Well, next for me, I've got another big DC book this week, and that is Action Comics Annual for 2023. Check that out. And this is a big issue if you have been reading Action Comics for like the last 3 years. This is the culmination of the whole thing that Philip Kenny Johnson has been doing since War World and all of those stories. Pretty much most of the DC Rebirth era or Dawn of DC and before,
Yeah.
even
Before.
before
Yeah.
that, yeah. So I don't want to give away too much about this one because it is the finale of years of
3 years
storytelling.
of storytelling.
But
Yeah.
I do love seeing the culmination. One thing I've loved about this run is the inclusion of the Superman family.
Yeah.
So as you see on the cover, you've got the whole gang here. Uh, we are on Earth Al Ghul, is what they call it. If you've been following it, you know who the big villain in this is, which is very interesting. And you have Superman, Etrigan, and Bloodwind teamed up to try and rescue Superman's new adopted daughter, Otho Ra. And it's really cool. Like these three, which it's like Superman and two like very like horror magic
Yeah.
characters going on this mission. And it's actually Etrigan that's gonna go and get the girl as Superman and Bloodwind hold off
That's cool.
the big army that's coming.
Just
So
just hearing Bloodwind makes me want to go back and read like early '90s Superman or
yeah,
Justice League. I mean, and then and Death of Superman and all this. Like, I just want to go back and
yeah.
revisit that.
So that is super cool. But you do kind of learn what is Sister Shadow, who is the big villain in this. What is her plans with Otho Ra? You know, she's been kind of teasing her like, "Oh, you could have been this if you stayed on World. You could have been this great leader and warrior and all that." But of course, it's pretty one-sided when you find out what Sister Shadow has in store. But the I feel like the coolest part of this is this rescue mission that Superman and Etrigan and Bloodwind are doing that I thought was really fun. It definitely just like wraps up all the storyline by the end. There is a there's no to be continued. It says end, has a really nice finale to it, and really excited about what is coming up next in Action Comics as we get the I always forget it.
Superman Superstars.
Superman
Yeah.
Superstars that is coming soon. So don't miss this. There's no backup stories in this. This all is
You're gonna
just
ask.
yeah.
That's
This is
awesome.
all one story.
And that's cool because coming up in Action Comics, like for the at least this next year, there's no backup stories in that either.
Yeah.
So like every issue is going to be just that one story, and that's
Yeah.
it.
So very, very cool in here. But mostly telling you this too, if you've been reading Action Comics, make sure your store grabs this one for you because you're just gonna, the previous issue didn't end the story. It ends in the annual, and not every store grabs the annual if you're on pull for the main series. So don't miss out on Action Comics annual.
Yeah, if you're the kind like I used to be in the '90s, where I purposely skipped annuals.
Yeah.
Don't skip that annual.
So we've got some cool variants for this.
I
This
like
is
that
the
one.
Dave Wilkins variant.
Yeah,
This is a big Superman,
yeah,
not only in like comparison to the buildings, but just muscle to head
yeah.
ratio. And then
That
we
is
also
Kaiju
have,
Superman.
we have this Perio variant as well.
That Superman is the one who should be fighting
I
Godzilla in
know.
the other book.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he may actually be bigger than
I think
Godzilla on
so.
that cover.
Yeah. All right, let's see. Next for me is Alan Scott Green Lantern number 3, just continuing this really awesome miniseries. And in this one, Alan Scott is just continuing his investigation on into who's murdering people from his past. The Spectre actually shows up to help him, which is cool because this is set in 1941. So like old school Golden Age Spectre showing up, like it's just cool. And he's in a good chunk of the book too. Like they're sort of going through and like investigating all this stuff. I will say there is a really nice moment between the Spectre and Alan Scott in this. I won't spoil it. I won't tell you what it is, but like it was a good like 1 or 2 pages of them just having this moment that was really nice. But then you get to the end, and don't worry, no spoilers, but the pieces, it's almost like a puzzle, and it's like when you really start to the pieces kind of fall into place and you're really starting to see the bigger picture at the end, the pieces really start falling into place as to what is going on, who is behind all of this. And we learn it at the same time that Alan Scott does too. So when I saw it, I was like, "Oh, that is what is going on."
I think it's because you mentioned that on our short show, and I'm like,
Yeah,
I can't even figure out what that would be.
yeah, and I was like, I, I should have seen it coming. I feel like, and I feel like I didn't. I don't know if that means I'm stupid or it's just really, really well written. Probably it's a little bit of both. But it just like it clicked. I was like, oh, I can't wait to see what happens next. So I think it's going to lead into just a really awesome story in these next 3 issues. But just another really well done. The art's great. Like cool seeing Alan Scott and the Spectre teaming up and figuring all this stuff out. Very, very cool. So I recommend this. I'm loving this miniseries. I recommend this. So there's our A cover right there. And then we have this really nice Amy Reader variant as well, showing kind of like the Alan Scott and Green Lantern, sort of reflecting in the mirror. Very nice.
That's cool. And I love the Spectre,
Yep.
like classic Jim
He's cool in
Corrigan
this. Yeah.
Spectre. Um, he's been played so many different ways. Like you basically have a character that's the like hand of God,
Yeah.
but he's also on a superhero team, and it's like
Yeah.
he feels a little bit too big for this.
And all
But
of that kind of like plays into this too. Like, and we talked about it before. It makes me want like when they're done with these 3 Golden Age books, it makes me want like a Wildcat, or maybe not Wildcat, or maybe the original Wildcat, right? He was
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
But give me a Wildcat and an Atom and a Spectre or Our Man or somebody
even
like give
like a
me like
Golden
more.
Age Hawkman or something like
Yeah,
that would be
yeah.
really
I would
cool.
love that.
Yeah, I'm very excited to continue that. Loving all the Golden Age
Yep,
stuff.
yep.
Okay, next up for me is a book that I keep loving more and more. This is only the second issue, but this is Holy Roller,
Mm,
number 2. This is by Andy Samberg, Rick Remender, and Joe Troman. That's the Andy Samberg from Brooklyn Nine-Nine and SNL, Lonely Island, all of that good stuff. And Joe Troman, who is a member of Fall Out Boy, and Rick Remender, who has written a billion comics. So it's really cool. And this continues. I was telling Matt before, I think this entire issue could take place between like 20 to 30 minutes of time, which I actually really liked
Mhm.
because it feels like really like decompressed storytelling, not in a bad way where it's like, oh, it's boring, nothing's happening, but it's like I'm learning these
Yeah.
characters and it's not rushing through things. So in this, after the events of the previous issue, which we had our main character, I was just having a second ago, having to look up like what was the main character's name? Levi. Levi, who came back to town. He was a member of like Greenpeace, but he was kind of a terrible member.
Yeah.
He was just kind of a
He's a
slacker.
slacker. Yeah.
He comes back to realize that his hometown that he grew up in, that was kind of idyllic, there was a bully that definitely caused him trouble, but he comes back to it and realizes like his town has gone downhill. There's like neo-Nazis living there, and after a run-in with his childhood bully, he defended himself with his father's bowling ball in the last one. Well, that's where this picks up, where he is back home, and on the news there's a report that uh, this crazed man with a bowling ball is attacking people because even the news is kind of in the palm of the who's running the town and everything. So now he's definitely like a vigilante because they see him as the bad guy, and he's like, there's no way they knew that was me, do they? But turns out they did, and a big mob is coming straight for
Oh
him.
man.
How is he going to fight them off or prove his innocence or what? You'll have to read to find out. But I'll say he does have a suit in this one, but it's not this suit.
Okay.
I guess he's kind of building up to it, but
Interesting.
just the writing's really good. There was a few comedy moments, and I said this in the first one that I was like, really works. Sometimes comedy in comics can fall flat. It can go either way. I can think of really funny Deadpool moments and
Oh
really
yeah.
mad Deadpool moments. This actually, you could tell the writing of this is very strong because there's a few moments I didn't like audibly just like fall out of my chair laughing, but it's just like that's a good joke. Like
Yeah.
that's solid writing. So everything's firing on all cylinders. I really suggest picking this up if you've not tried it. Get the first issue and get this one. They're building a really cool character and story and world and everything in Holy Roller. Number two, this is our A cover. Still teasing us with that new look, but
It's a cool look. I like it.
haven't got there yet. I mean, it'd kind of be funny if he went through the whole thing and he never wears that.
Oh, don't
He's
tell
like
me
inside of it.
that.
We also have this 1 in 10 Andrew Robinson variant that we're selling for $8. He does try out some other forms of defense that are sports equipment, a la very Casey
I was gonna
Jones.
say it sounds like Casey Jones.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Casey Jones never really used a bowling ball, as far as I
No.
remember. So the two of them together have it all
Yeah, they
covered.
have the whole
Right.
ESPN covered.
All right. So next for me is Marvel Superheroes Secret Wars Battleworld #2, and this book is just super fun if you are an old man like me who loves the first or the original Secret Wars and had the figures when you were a kid. Because this is sort of just like having all those figures just banging them against each other, fighting. Spider-Man and Human Torch, they're continuing their battle against Absorbing Man and Hobgoblin. Um, but while all this is going on, and this was in issue #1 as well, they're being monitored by two different beings. I guess I don't know what else you call them. We don't know who it is. All we just see are like their word balloons. But they're bigger, more powerful than the Beyonder. They keep calling the Beyonder the defective one, I think. So I don't know
Huh.
who they are. And then more villains get added to them. So these two beings, they add more villains into the mix. They add, I wasn't going to say until I realized, oh yeah, they're all right there. They add Baron Zemo, Constrictor, and Electro. But they also add more heroes too. And I won't tell you who the heroes are since they're not on the cover. But if you know your Secret Wars toy line from the 80s, and you know which characters they made into toys that did not appear in the original Secret Wars, then you might know who all pops up in this. And
Cool.
it's really cool because it feels like the whole point of this book is to sort of retcon those figures that they made. So Hobgoblin, Zemo, Constrictor, and Electro, and then the heroes that pop up, they had figures, but they were never in the original storyline. So I feel like the point of this series is to retcon them into it. I don't really know why, but it's super fun. And there's a really cool scene where these beings, whoever they are, who are monitoring the heroes and villains, they're looking at them on a screen, and they have these like little scans over their bodies. But the villains have like the gray square, like
Oh,
their
yeah.
shields, and there's like all these little like colored scales and stuff. And then the heroes have the red circles over their
Oh,
bodies on the screen, monitoring their vitals, like, and they look like the shields from the
yeah.
toys. Like that's so cool. And then otherwise, other than that, it's just there's just them fighting. Like I said, it's just them taking those action figures and just banging them together. But it's fun. It's really fun. You know, Spider-Man's still learning about his new symbiote suit because this takes place during the original Secret Wars. It's just a lot of fun. Like I love Secret Wars. That's my second favorite toy line of all time, and just seeing those toys in a book is really cool. So, and it's cool too because they mention like Zemo pops up. And at the time, he wasn't really that big of a
Yeah.
villain. Like, back in the 80s, like Baron Zemo, what is he? I mean, he's been around, but he wasn't like as big as he is now. So, he's kind of like bossing them around, like, why should we follow you? That kind of thing. But it's just fun. It's just really, really fun. So we have our A cover right there. And then speaking of the toys, we have this really cool John Tyler Christopher action figure variant. That's exactly what they looked like back in the day, which is funny because normally the action figure variants look like characters that never had a
Yeah.
figure, but like that's exactly what it looked like. He had his figure made, and that's what it looked like. So it's cool to see. And then we always say you can't start a series without one of these. I guess you can't have a number two without one either. There's a nice Scotty Young cover with Human Torch burning up the old symbiote there.
This sounds like a really good series to get a kid, maybe when it's all done, collected. That's just like you want action, you want
Yeah.
tons of
Uh
characters.
huh.
It'd be really good for
Yeah,
that.
yeah, that collected edition. There's tomorrow is the Secret Wars 2 trade paperback that comes out. There's a Secret Wars omnibus that came out too long ago. You can put all those together and just have like a big Secret Wars story.
Yeah, very cool. Okay, next up, one that I can't say too much about, but I want to let you know, World Tree is back. This is World Tree number 6, continuing the series. It was on a brief hiatus for a little while after the first volume, gave people time to get the first trade, everything, but now World Tree is back and as good as ever, as creepy as ever. Creepy in a very like I don't know. It's not monsters and that kind of thing. It's a whole different kind of
Mhm.
creepy. But continues the story after the previous issue where some big event happened and basically shut down the internet or any way that people can communicate that way. It even has a part where they're watching a TV and it's a news like station that finally got back on the air and they're like, well, props to all the people who had the rabbit ears
Oh yeah.
they could pull them out of storage that you're going to be seeing those back on shelves again. People don't have phone signals, that kind of stuff, and we're slowly starting to see this kind of like phase 2 of the world tree plan and
Okay.
even the character fear that's popped up through the entire thing does not have a big presence in here. Doesn't appear in this issue, but definitely has a big
Okay,
presence.
gotcha.
So very cool in there. So if you're a fan of World Tree, it is back. That is our A cover. And we got some very spicy variant covers because she likes to walk around without a whole lot on, but her birthday suit. So here is the Hickson variant.
Don't ban us, YouTube.
Yeah. We have a 1 in 10 Ward variant that we're selling for $12. And then we have this really nice Jay Lee 1 in 25 variant for $25. Very, very creepy. Almost reminds me of like Death from Sandman and
Yeah.
stuff.
I never finished the first arc, but I have all the issues. I want to go home
Yeah,
like right now and like just read the whole thing and then maybe pick that up tomorrow.
you may end up very depressed
Oh
by the
wow.
end of it.
Okay. Well,
Very dark, but it's fun. It's a very cool
we have
story.
that post Christmas depression, so maybe that could just add to it. All right, so next for me is Carnage number 2, just the second issue of this new Carnage series featuring Cletus Cassidy back inside the symbiote, I guess. That sounds kind of weird to say. But he is just
The band's
continuing.
back together.
Yeah, yeah. He's continuing his murder spree across the country. All of his victims seem to be random, like they don't really have a connection but there is some kind of pattern there that Flash Thompson is kind of working on. That the news is kind of sort, or maybe it's just a podcast he's listened to, but somebody else is picking up on it too. So he's investigating that. Flash also reaches out to Liz Allen for help figuring out because Flash actually, well, Flash is convinced that it's Carnage,
Yeah,
but Liz says, well, but we killed Cletus Cassidy back in the Carnage Reign
yeah,
storyline. You know, like he got burned up or whatever. But so they don't actually, we know obviously,
yeah.
but they don't actually know 100% for sure yet. So Flash, gets Liz Allen's help to figure out is it really him or not. The last page of this is really surprising though, and it raises a lot of questions for me. And I'm like, the minute I saw it, I was like, oh, I did not expect that in this book. What does that mean? How is that possible? That kind of stuff. So that's
Interesting.
what you can look forward to if you read this. But yeah, if you like the first issue, this is just more of the same. So there's our A cover right there. And then we have this Peach Momoko Nightmare variant, which
Because we just have to make Carnage more
right,
nightmarish.
he's his own nightmare. But yeah, there's one of those.
Very cool. Next up, I have Titans. This is Titans number 6. You can see prominently on there is Starfire, and that is what this issue is mostly about. Like I said in the previous one, we have Starfire out fighting Black Adam, who is a lion. It's like half man, half lion. So this is when that takes place. So I will tell you, read Beast World number 3 before reading this issue. There's not much spoilers,
The story
but
flows
but the
better.
story flows better. I actually stopped. I was reading this one first, and I stopped reading this one when I realized when this took place. Went back and then read Beast World and came back to this. But this one is really interesting because yes, it does. It's taking place during Beast World, and the Titans are kind of the main heroes in that. But this one is mostly about Starfire and really continues the story arc that was going on in Titans before Beast World. The stuff with Brother
Mm.
Blood
Oh
and
yeah,
all
yeah, yeah.
that is picked back up in here. So the beginning of this is really cool. We get, if you're not familiar with like Starfire's origin, we kind of get a retelling with some little tweaks and stuff in it of Starfire, and we find out that Brother Eternity, even though Beast World's going on, he's not done yet, and some pretty big surprises happen, especially at the end of this. It definitely makes you rethink pretty much all the issues of Titans so far.
Oh, okay.
Some characters may be different than you thought they were. So
Hmm.
check it out. That is Titans number 6, continuing to be so good. We've also got some variants for this one. So we've got the Jin Bartel variant with Casual Raven. I really like Raven in
Casual,
this series.
casual Friday Raven.
Yeah, I really like Raven in this series. That she's kind of evolved as a person
Oh yeah.
with her and her relationship with Beast Boy and stuff. We have this Talaski variant. Nice Christmas card. Everybody, I like Donna Troy's festive
Vest.
Christmas
Yeah.
vest. Very cool there. And then we also have this 1 in 25 Perel variant where it's on for $20. I will say though it doesn't really spoil anything about uh Beast World number 3.
Mhm.
There is stuff that deals with like we do see Detective Chimp and the Doctor, Nightwing's
Oh,
Doctor
okay.
friend, and what they're doing, like checking up on Batman as the Wolf and stuff. That is continued in this
Okay.
too. So I think that is like because when I got to it, I was like, oh wait, where did this come from? And then I read Beast World. I was like, oh okay, that definitely leads into this.
Yeah.
So yeah, just for your own benefit, read Beast World first and then this.
Next for me is Spider Woman number 2. So this is sort of a hybrid of a gang war tie-in, but also just a second issue of Spider Woman's book. And I mean, honestly, if you wanted just to read Spider Woman without gang war, you could. I mean, this doesn't really tie all that much into gang war. It's gang war is happening while this is going on, but it's not like it feeds into the main story a lot. But Spider Woman actually gets help from Nightshade to figure out what's in the drug that Diamondback is peddling, that Hydra is helping him create. And they find that there's a substance in it that is manufactured by a large pharmaceutical company named the Typhon Group. So obviously, little Spider Woman wants to know, what's up with that. So she goes undercover, and it's one of those things where put on the wig, fake ID, sneak into the building, slink off into the bathroom and crawl through the ducts and whatever. But it doesn't go as smoothly as all of that as these types of stories tend to do. Like I said, Hydra is sort of involved, and Diamondback. She's looking for her son, and she thinks that Hydra is responsible. I don't know why she thinks that, but she she might be on the right path. We'll say
Okay.
that. We'll say that much. But yeah, just if you enjoyed the first one, or if you're wanting to read all the Gang War stuff, issue number 2 of Spider Woman is out now. There's our A cover, and we have a couple
I
cool
like this
variants.
one.
Yeah, this is the Lupacino variant, and then I really like this one. This is
Yeah.
the Nakayama, one of the ski chalet variants. I don't know how she's not freezing.
Yeah, she doesn't have like self-warming power,
Right.
so
Yeah, but very cool. I like that one.
okay, next up, I've got Star Wars Dark Droids number 5. This is the final issue of the Dark Droids storyline that wraps everything up. Now, if you read some of the previous ones, it's very odd that we saw basically how this storyline comes to an end in a previous,
Oh
actually,
yeah.
kind of two previous issues where we saw kind of the downfall of the Scourge character. And I was like, oh, but maybe we don't know everything. It's like, we pretty much know everything going into this. So you see kind of how it comes about and everything. But we saw basically the end of the storyline like a couple weeks ago, which is very odd. But this is the finale. The scourge being as he's been spreading himself out through all the droids and trying to figure out how to take over organic characters and stuff maybe does start feeling the strain of spreading himself too thin, and that could be part of his downfall. We also get Ajax Sigma, who's been a big droid character in this, teaming up with the D Squad, which, if you're reading their miniseries, it's cool to see all of those converge to make a final attack on the Scourge's main ship. But this does wrap up the Dark Droid storyline pretty well. There is, like any storyline that I feel like in modern comics, there is kind of in, there's
Yeah.
kind of that, like, we could see the return of
Does
any
it
of
say
these.
the end with a question mark?
I
It's not that obvious.
It may actually. I'm not positive it's that, but that sentiment is definitely seen.
Yeah.
So we could come back to some of these characters. We could not. I'm not sure, but it was a good wrap up of this series. I'm excited to get kind of back to the standard stories of each of these series with Star Wars and Darth Vader. And now that Bounty Hunters is wrapping up, Afra is wrapping up, we're getting Jango Fett coming up. So I'm ready for this next kind of wave of Star Wars stories coming on board. So that is our final issue of Dark Droids. And we've got, I really like this. This is a fun variant cover, the John Tyler Christopher Scourge variant. Because if you look, he's got a cape, but it's like those classic capes,
Oh, like
like the
the
Jawa had and stuff that were
yeah,
way too
the
high.
plasticky ones.
Yeah, yeah. So that one is really cool as well.
Yeah. All right, next for me is Captain Marvel number 3. Continuing Captain Marvel's adventures being bonded to Una Yang through the Nega bands. The last issue, at the end of the last issue, Una Yang, actually, Captain, I don't remember if it was Captain Marvel, Una Yang, but they went to the Sanctum Sanctorum to sort of hide from Genis Vell, who has been corrupted by Omen, and that's where this whole thing picks up. Una Yang is in the Sanctum Sanctorum, but she's attacked by this mystical dragon-looking creature inside the Sanctum. Obviously, it's Doctor Strange's home, so there's all kinds of weird
Yeah.
mystical stuff. He tries to swap places with Carol, banging the bands together, but it doesn't work because Carol expended so much energy fighting Genis Vell in the issue before, but she is able to eventually switch. And well, I won't say what happens with the dragon, but eventually she comes face to face with Doctor Strange and Clea and tells them, what's going on, tells them about the Nega bands and all that stuff. The Strangers are able to maybe help a little bit with the power drain issue that she's experiencing, and they're able to give her a little bit of not the answers, but they're able to sort of point Carol in the right direction of what she needs to do to get the Nega bands off and to break that connection. So that's going to be her next goal. But at the end of this, Omen's identity is revealed, and I didn't necessarily see it coming. But if you've been reading the issue, well, I won't say anything. But I didn't see it coming. I didn't see it coming. Maybe I should have. But we do see who Omen is, and it looks like Omen maybe there's somebody above Omen that they're working for, and I don't know who that is or who that could be. But yeah, so a little bit more of that storyline is moving forward. So if you've been enjoying the first two issues, just want to make sure that you did not miss the third one out tomorrow. So there's our A cover right there. And then we have this Swaby variant featuring Carol and Yuna.
Very cool. Okay, next up, I've got another one of my favorite series, Sensational She-Hulk. Sensational She-Hulk #3, and you see She-Hulk facing off against regular Hulk,
Yeah.
cousin Hulk, in this. So in this one, we saw in the previous one that the Booth family that's kind of been a thorn in Jennifer's side through this entire thing, who has been stealing the blood
Yeah.
of uh, Hulk characters, finally attacks, and you've got this is actually pretty action-filled issue. You know, a lot of this series and the previous series, not a whole lot of action. We do get a pretty big throwdown between them because April Booth becomes a new Hulk named Anathema, and it's pretty interesting the dynamic that happens there with that. But the my favorite part of this issue was uh, Hulk is very anti Bruce Banner right now.
Right.
He's like, nope, Banner's gone. He's puny Banner, all that. Uh, She Hulk actually has a pretty nice heart to heart with Hulk in this, that she kind of apologizes for some of the things she said to him and everything. But just really good moment of like these two cousins, like in their Hulk forms, having this talk that may mean things for the future in their relationship, but we'll have to see. It was just a really nice moment in this issue, and I've just continued to love the series. So that is Sensational She-Hulk #3. And like always, this has some of the best variant covers. So we have this Ariel Diaz variant. Very feels like very 80s 90s
Yeah.
She-Hulk with the big hair.
That's classic like costume too, the purple and the
Yeah.
white. Yeah, it was good.
And then we have this Woo variant as well that's very nice.
All right, next for me is Miles Morales. Oh, my bad.
Actually, sorry, I missed the incentive. We have the Cho variant. This is a 1 in 25 Michael Cho variant that we're selling for $20. Continue.
Continue. Miles Morales Spider-Man number 14. This is a gang war tie-in, but also just continuing his main book as well. So there's a lot of moving parts in this issue. So Hobgoblin has recruited the Prowler, the Aaron Davis version of the Prowler, Miles' uncle.
Yeah.
Which I'm confused about that because now that they're all on one Earth, like I wonder if has Hobie Brown's Prowler ever met Aaron Davis' Prowler? Like I'm confused about that.
They make the Prowler League. Or
Yeah,
something.
but Hobgoblin has hired Aaron Davis's Prowler to hire the enforcers, Montana and Fancy Dan and the Ox. So the Prowler has gone to we haven't seen those guys and I don't even know when the last time. But he goes to, he recruits the enforcers to work with him kind of for Hobgoblin kind of thing. And Hobgoblin gives them all advanced weapons so that they can sort of play their part in the gang war as well. But while that's all that's going on, you've got Miles and Misty Knight and Colleen Wing. They are, going up against the Cape Killers, who have been on Miles' tail pretty much this whole series because of the whole anti-vigilante thing that's it's part of New York right now. Um, so they're determined to get all of them. All of these various groups end up facing off against each other, like another big just mashup of things going on. And all while the gang war is happening in the background. So, like I said, just lots of different moving parts of this. And at the end, even more players get added into the fray. So there's just a big old. It's almost like the Miles Morales book has its own little gang war going. It's not a gang war, but its own little war that's going on while the gang war is going on over here. So just another fun book. This whole series has been really solid so far. And because of the characters that come in at the end, I really want to see especially one of them. It's like, oh, that's super cool to see that character be involved. So I can't wait for the next issue. But yeah, another good issue of Miles Morales Spider-Man. That's our A cover, and then we have this really cool In-Hyuk Lee Hobgoblin variant.
And my last book this week is Batman Santa Claus Silent Night #4, the end of this 4-issue miniseries. That, great timing. Yes, it is coming out the day after Christmas, but still, it's also wrapping up the story, which also feels kind of like the end of
Yeah.
Christmas. So just really fun issue, kind of expanding on the story a little bit, where we find out what turned Krampus bad, and
Yeah. Why is he doing this? Yeah.
is there any redemption for him? It may be surprising, like, where all of this stems from when you read it, and I really like. There's a moment at the end of this where Santa gives um, basically the Justice League and all the heroes a gift. Uh,
That was very cool to see.
did
Yeah.
you read this one?
I read it on the app.
Okay, yeah, the he he gives them kind of a little vacation,
Yeah.
and that I thought was really cool, and they all have a great moment. But just a great wrap up to this series that has been really fun over this holiday season. So finish it up, and I hope we see more of this in the future.
Yeah.
So we've got our main cover here. We also have the lyrics variant, Wonder Woman, gonna make Santa tell the truth because he's a notorious liar.
Yeah.
And lastly, we have this 1 in 25 hair seed variant for $20.
And last for me is Detective Comics number 1080. This is the last part of the 5-part Batman Outlaw storyline, although it's more like a chapter. Like the Batman Outlaw chapter concludes in this issue, but the whole thing's not done yet. Like it's still going to carry on into the next one, and it's going to be kind of hard to talk about any of it really without spoiling the end to this whole 5-part arc. But I will tell you that we saw in last issue that Catwoman has saved Batman from the Orgums, but they still got to get out of the city, which easier said than done. But they will get help from another unlikely ally. Catwoman has sort of pulled together this group of villains and heroes that normally wouldn't be a team, but they all agreed to get Batman out. And there's another one that enters the fray into this one. Meanwhile, there's a little bit of a shakeup in the Organ family, something that was pretty surprising. So they're going to look a little bit different from here on out. But now that Batman has been rescued and he is out of Gotham City, although not out of the woods, but he is out of Gotham City, the reality engine that's underneath Gotham City, it's starting to make people like literally forget about Batman. Like so, and that's really what the Organs wanted anyway, was to they wanted to kill the mask. They didn't really care about killing the man
Yeah.
underneath the mask, but they wanted to kill the legend. And maybe they actually sort of kind of pulled that off. So like I said, the Outlaw storyline is done, but there is a lot more to the Orgum stuff and Batman and where he's going to be next and that kind of thing. So I just want to let you know that if you've been reading this, don't miss out on the last part of this story arc. There's our A cover right there, and we have some cool variants for this. This is the Furama variant. And then there's this creepy
Very
looking
creepy.
Jason Sean Alexander. So that's your interior artist for this arc. And then this is the 1 in 25 Sharp variant. We're selling for $15. I think. Weren't there some other
Yeah, we've had
incentives
a
like this? Yeah, we've
few.
had some other ones that look like this. You could get all those and put them all together and put them up at a post office.
Yeah, on a court board.
That's right.
Well, before we wrap all this up, I just want to remind you, you can head over to infinityflux.net right now, where you can order these comics while supplies last. These variants, everything is up on there. So head over there, and also pre-order some books coming up. We're kind of in a hold pattern right now as the holidays wrap up for new books being solicited or coming up for pre-order, but that will resume very soon. So thank you so much for watching. And also, just remember, you can use that code I Love Flux at checkout and get 10% off your first order. So definitely use that over there. And join us. We'll have some fun shows coming up, since there isn't as much to order, that I think people will really enjoy as we round out this year and head into next year. So thank you so much for watching. And until next time, see
Yeah.
ya.